Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial on complete .NET Web APIs. And today I'll be showing you guys an interesting way to use HTTP client, which I usually use in most of my production scenarios. When we work on APIs, we are often hit with a problem of consuming third-party APIs or calling other APIs such that our API acts as a wrapper API for third-party APIs. Okay, and most of the time we end up using the HTTP client, which .NET offers to us. But the way we use it is directly by creating the instance of HTTP client. What I'll be showing you here is an interesting way of using it, which I often prefer for my production scenarios, and that's called typed HTTP client. Okay, so first of all, let me show you an example of how we currently use. So what I've done is I've created a controller called products controller, and I've created a method called get products. Okay, and what I'll be doing is I'll be consuming a third-party API. So I have dummyjson.com here, wherein I have some product APIs. So let me just go ahead and call the products. So you see dummyjson.com/products. And when I send, it gives me a data of products. Okay. So for that, let me go ahead and show you how we usually make calls to the third-party APIs. So before that, let me go ahead and create the required DTO. So often for third-party APIs, what I do is I go to the application project, organization.application, and inside common DTO, I've already created a folder called external. And now in that, what I'll be doing is I'll be creating the DTO which we would require. So let me call it as product response, product response.cs. Okay. And now what I'll do is I'll create the structure for the expected response. So if we just have a glance at the Postman response, we have this kind of a structure where it has ID, title, description, etc. So I will create the structure for that. So let me quickly add a structure which is required, so that our model or our DTO is ready. So let's change this to public field product response. And if I see how it is coming, the response is an object which contains a property called products, which is an array. So to correctly deserialize this, let's have that structure also ready. So I'll call it products response. I'll create another class called products response. So, or let's say multiple products response. We call this multiple products response. And in this, what I'll do is I'll just clear this out. And I'll just create an enumerable of product responses that should handle. Okay. So that should help us in correctly deserializing the response. Okay, so now since we have the models or the DTOs, let's go ahead and start with that. And before doing that, what I'll also do is to call a third-party API, we should always have the URL of the third-party API. And instead of just hard coding the URL, a better way is just to put it in the app settings file. So I'll go ahead and do that. So in this particular dummy API, so this is the URL which is basically used, and they also have a token which is shared, so that I can I can make authenticated calls. So I do have a token. So what I'll do is I'll create a setting here, and let me call it my third-party products. products options for my third-party product options. Okay, let's call it this. And I'll have two settings here. One is the base URL and one is the token. But again, since we are doing it for production kind of scenarios, instead of storing the token, which is confidential in here, we'll just store it in the user secrets. Since we are in the debug mode, we'll just right click and say manage user secrets, and I'll add it here so that we don't expose it. And if in production mode, we'll usually store it in the Azure key vault or any secret key vaults which we are using. But in our case, for this demo purpose, I'll show it to you in debug mode. So I'm storing it in user secrets. Okay. So my third-party product options is the name, my third-party product options. Okay. And so since we'll be using it, let's go ahead and create a global constant here called section for this. And let me call it public const string. Let's just copy this. And I'll call it my third party products. My third party products. And then let's just call this third party product options. Okay. Okay, since we have this now, next is we'll create the option setup class for that, which is here. So I'll just create add class. I'll name it as my third party product options setup. So this is the same thing which we have already done in previous sessions. I'll just repeat this. Field, and as you know, we'll inherit from I configuration figure options. And let's use product client options. So before that, what we'll do is we'll need to create the two settings. So let me add another class here. I'll name it as my third party product options. My third party product options, third party product options, and you can have two options in here. Let's call it string base URI. And I'll also call it token. Okay. Yeah. So okay. Let's rename this to my third party product options setup. Okay, so we name it correctly, third party product option setups, and now here we'll use this my third party product options, the one which we have just created, and let's inherit this, implement the interface, configure, and I'll just inject options here. Okay, and here what I'll do is I'll say underscore configuration dot get section, and we'll just use the global constants dot configure sections dot my third party product options, which is my third party product options. Okay, and then let's say bind it the options. Okay, yeah, so since this is all set up, next thing what we can do is just have a look at dependency injections. If we need to do anything, no, we are good there. Yes, what we'll have to do is in the presentation API's dependency injection configuration, what we'll do is we just configure options and my third party product options setup, which is this one. So let's inject it correctly. Okay, so now that's done. Let's go ahead and call the products in the usual way how we do. So what I'll just do is I'll just call it here. Let me just do it quick. Using, so this is the usual way wherein we call get HTTP client, and then we say new HTTP client. Okay, and then we say HTTP client dot add headers except application slash JSON. And the next is if there are any headers to be added, we'll do that. Default request headers dot add authorization, and let's add our token authorization. And let's add better space in this. So now what I'll do is I'll just inject my third party client options. So private read only my third party product options, call it the store options. Let me call it third party product options. And now here, what we'll do is I configure or I options, sorry, it's I options. I options of the same, which will be injected, and let's call it options. And here we'll assign it to this options.value. Okay, so we are good here. So now it's injected, so we can directly use underscore third party product options dot, and you see token. We can mention or specify the token here. And next, what we need to do is the URI, which is HTTP client dot default, no, dot base address. And this is where we specify the base URI or the URI to be called. So in our case, it will be third party options dot base URI. Okay. So now we are good here. Now we'll just accept the response. Await HTTP client dot get async. And to get those products, the URL is just products. So I'll just specify products. So this will give us HTTP response object. So now what we need to do is convert it into content. So let's do that, where string content string is equal to await response.content.read async. And then finally what we do is return, okay, and you'll have to deserialize the string in using JSON convert. So we'll have to use this from Newtons of JSON. So let me find and install the latest version. Once that's done, we'll use this .deserialize object. And the object which we wanted to deserialize is into my products response. So let's see what's the DTO which we have called it. Multiple products response. Multiple products response. And here we'll add the content string. We'll deserialize it. Okay, so this is how we usually make call to our HTTP client. Okay, let's run and check if everything is working as expected or we face any exceptions. Now let's start the API. So let me go to API, products, try to execute. Let's see if we put a breakpoint there. Yes, we've already have. Let me just execute it. So the breakpoint is hit, HTTP client. So you see now the token, we are already getting it from user secrets and the base URI, which we have put in app settings. So all good here and continue. So you see, we have got the response successfully. So we have used HTTP client in the usual way, which we do, and have fetched all the products like how it was fetching in the raw request, which we made through Postman. Now, this is the usual way of doing it. A better way, which I'll show you now, is using something called as typed HTTP client. So for that, instead of doing all this, what I'll do is I'll create a service called, so in the application project, let me go ahead and create third-party services. Let me just create a folder here called third-party services. I'll just create a class called, we'll call it external products service. So once we create this class, what we'll do here is we'll inject the HTTP client object here, and then we can create whatever methods which we want. So the low-level code of interacting with HTTP client will be encapsulated inside this service class, so that you can just use the instance of the service class in your code, which is much cleaner way and a cleaner approach to do this. So let me just say public async task, and let's say list of product response. List of product response, and say get products async. And now here what we need to do is we just call response await underscore client dot get async, and again we need to call products, so products. Okay, and then what I'll just do is I'll just do the usual implementation. So response does success, and then newtons of JSON to deserialize the object and to multiple products response dot product. Okay, so now you must be thinking that we've used all this. What's different? So what's different is the URL and all the configurations associated to this HTTP client will be moved outside. Here, you will only deal with the actual implementation of what kind of endpoints you need to call, and so that you can call individual endpoints of the third-party API in your custom individual method in this particular service. Okay, so now let's go to dependency injections class so that we can inject it here. So the way we do it here is we'll call services dot add HTTP client, and here, since it's typed HTTP client, we'll put in the type of the service which we have created. So let's call it external product service. And now what we'll do is we'll start configuring it. Since we have to inject some configuration items, I'll just say service provider and HTTP client. So the service provider is basically iService provider. So using that, we can get the actual value of settings, that is my third-party products. So what we have called it is my third-party product options. We can use that. My third-party product options. Third-party product options. Okay, and then we just use the request headers here. So we configure it here. We configure the token here. Page URI. Okay, so we've configured it here now. So now when we'll be using it, we can inject the external product service wherever we want, and we can just directly call this method. Okay, but there's one caveat here, and that is when we use external product service with add HTTP client here. So this is usually injected in dependency injection as transient dependency injection. So transient dependency injection as in for every request, a new instance of this service will be created. But it is also possible to use it in any singleton service which you have. So if that happens, since singleton services uh, have a lifetime of entire application, what will happen is the underlying HTTP client instance in this will be maintained for the entire life cycle of that singleton service which you want to use in. So for that, there is a way we can use the configuration. So what we can do is we can say configure primary HTTPS handler, and we'll just make this as the primary HTTPS handler. So we'll return new socket handler, sockets HTTP handler, sockets HTTP handler, and then we'll have a property pooled connection lifetime, so that, and let's have it 5 minutes of 5 minutes. So 5 seconds, no, 5 minutes. Let's have it 5 minutes from minutes, 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, the connection pool will be reset. And that way, even if you are using this dependency injection inside a singleton service, it won't cause port exhaustion for HTTP client being there for a long time, because we'll be recycling it every 5 minutes. Okay, and we'll also set the handler lifetime timeout to finite space. Yeah, so we'll also have this setting in place, set handler lifetime, timeout in finite time span. Okay, so now let's use it directly here. So instead of using it this way, what we can do is I'll just create the usual way we were working. That is, let me go ahead and create or inject it here. So let's inject the dependency directly here. Instead of using this, we can inject external product service. Instead of doing this, I will just remove this. We can also use CQRS. So let me do that. So I'll create a new module for products. So let me create a new folder for product module. And let's add commands and queries. Commands and queries, and inside the queries, let's say get products. Okay, and let me go ahead and create the get products query. So add class get products query. So we'll remove this. I'll paste in this. Yeah, so get products query. I request I'll return error or and list of product response. So let me go ahead and create the handler for it quickly. Get query, get products query handler. Get products query handler. Public field class. So we inherit from I request handler, and the request was get products query, and we'll return error or list of product response. Product response. Now let me implement the interface. Public async task. Yeah, so now what I'll do is I'll inject it in the constructor here. So I'll inject external product services here so that we can just call the required method here. So what we'll do is return await underscore external product services dot. We have one method there, get external product services, and we'll call that. Okay, that's it. So we can put a breakpoint here, and then in the products controller, as usual, we will set up products query and call this. Okay, So we'll send the query get products query. So this will give us list of products. Now let's quickly call this. So when I go to products now, give this. So our breakpoint is hit. Let me click on continue. So the handler is hit. So now if we inspect it, so as expected, we have hit the external products, and you see that our HTTP client is injected perfectly. And here we get the response. Okay. So same response, but if you see, this approach is ideal for production, wherein we use typed HTTP client, and that's what I usually prefer. And that's it. So we've covered typed HTTP client implementation in this tutorial. Thanks. Bye-bye.